Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Light Sports Ramble, presented by the Light Sports Network. I am Troy Otradovic, as always, joined by the extravagant Evan Witallison out in Wisconsin. How do you like that one today, Evan? You're extravagant.
Yeah, it's a different one. You've been repeating them a couple times, so I was wondering what was going on, but you got a new one today.
Yeah, that's because I had a Diet Pepsi that was not caffeine free today, so I'm all worked up. But
like me and the Red Bull yesterday.
Yeah, you and your Red Bull on St. Patty's Day. That you were getting at it for a little bit there. Well, I know, Evan. We were talking to the National Pro Fast Pitch Commissioner. She had mentioned she was going to try to get on the show today or tomorrow. We were hoping she could get on with us tonight, Sherry Kempf. But looks like we're going to go back to original programming, which is Packer Talk, which there is a lot of news going on. You know, we had talked about James Jones. James Starks was a free agent. We signed Julius Pepper. So there's a lot of stuff going on our Packer Talk on Tuesday. So I'll turn it over to you, and we'll start right at the top with Julius Peppers. We talked a little bit on Saturday before our rant about it, but let's really now dig down deep into what Julius Peppers is going to do for the team and how he's going to be able to help our defense.
Well, right around the NFL Combine, or during the NFL Combine, when Mike McCarthy talked to the media, he was talking about how he wanted to get more versatile on the defense. And with the signing of Julius Peppers and also with the signing of Latroy Guillen, I don't know how to pronounce that exactly, from the Vikings, by signing those two guys, he's doing just that. Julius Peppers is a athletic, freak, to put it one way. He goes 6'7", about 280 pounds, and he's a heck of an athlete. Even if he's getting up there in age a little bit, he's a heck of an athlete. He played basketball in North Carolina. He started on the basketball team in North Carolina, and since he's been in the NFL, he's put together some pretty good seasons. He's got 119 career sacks. He's got 9 career interceptions. He's got 562 career combined tackles. So he's an athlete, and he can be a playmaker. You always see him forcing fumbles, stripping the football when he gets sacks, and he's going to open things up for Clay Matthews, Mike Daniels, Dayton Jones, B.J. Raji, Mike Neal, Nick Perry. He's going to open things up for all of them, because between Clay Matthews, Julius Peppers, and B.J. Raji becomes B.J. Raji, we hope he comes back to that 2010 B.J. Raji. Who are you going to give help to? Like, are you going to give it to up the middle? You're going to send it on the edge? And then, like I said, you throw Mike Daniels in there, who had, I believe, 6.5 sacks last year. Peppers is a great addition to the team, and he also brings a veteran presence to the team as well.
Yeah, I don't know what else you want me to say about that. I mean, the one thing that I think this allows us to do is it's going to allow Dom Capers to do a lot more things. And what I mean by a lot more things is you have Julius Peppers there. You can actually now not have to run just a 3-4. You could go into a 4-3 look on certain downs. You can get into a little bit more aggressive things on defense, because you're starting to get personnel that allows you to do different things. Correct me if I'm wrong, but with the talent level we had last year, Evan, we had to be pretty vanilla. And what I mean by vanilla is basically running 3-4, and that's what we're going to do. We can't take chances. We can't disguise our schemes. We can't even mix up our schemes because we didn't have the personnel to do it. And so I think now with the addition of Peppers, and I don't think Ted Thompson is done. I know that we signed Starks, and so we ate up a little bit more of the cap. But I wouldn't be so sure if Ted Thompson doesn't bring in somebody else on that defensive end of the ball. Because I think Brady Papinga brought it up in our conversation, or he did bring it up. Competition. And Ted Thompson had no competition last year. And so I think that's what you're seeing. You know, I had people were wondering why he signed another defensive lineman after Peppers. But it's right what you're saying. Another athletic guy to give competition. Is he going to come in and start? Probably not. But he's going to give a lot of good competition in there and spell people and be a good guy to rotate in there. Because if you remember the Super Bowl run, we did a lot of rotating up front. And those guys were fresh. And we haven't been able to do that in a long time. So let's talk about some of the other signings, unless you have anything else to talk about with Julius Peppers. Anything else you want to add?
Don't have anything to add regarding him, but just at the end of business on Monday, Rob Demoski from ESPN tweeted this out earlier today. At the end of business on Monday, before the Raji and Guillen deals were officially in, the Packers had still about $20.6 million under the cap. They're now they should be now at around 15.6. I don't know if that's included in the Starks re-signing or not, but that's still a lot of money to play with.
Yeah, it's a ton of money to play with. So, you brought up Starks. I had seen a tweet, I think it was over the weekend, that James Starks was going to visit Pittsburgh. And you know I live in Pittsburgh. And I'm sitting here scratching my head going, why would James Starks come to Pittsburgh? I mean, why would he even come visit? I could see if he's going to go to a team where he has a chance to start. But if he would come to Pittsburgh, he was going to have to be behind Bell, who was their first-round draft pick, and then be in the same role. So I was scratching my head going, I don't understand this. But maybe it was a negotiation ploy with his agent to say, hey, there's some teams interested in us. But he never came to Pittsburgh. And he re-signed with the Packers. How do you feel about that signing, having James Starks back in the mix?
I like having him back in the mix. I know I was a little, head-scratcher on why James Starks is re-signing at Green Bay, thinking about it, because he's 26 years old, still young. He could be a starter, other places in the league that could use running back help, and yet he re-signed with Green Bay, which is great for Green Bay, but it's like, why Green Bay? But I think Starks knows, and the reason why he's not going to go to Pittsburgh for pretty much the same role, and I'm sure our Pittsburgh listeners are going to be mad at me for saying this, so I do apologize right now, but I think he chose the Packers because he sees in the Packers situation and being in a situation that he can be a key contributor to the Super Bowl. And the closest the Steelers are going to get to the Super Bowl for the next couple of years is watching it on TV unless they buy a ticket. So I think he wants to be a key contributor once again to helping them win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree with you. Pittsburgh is in a rebuilding mode right now. They're losing some keys offensively, defensively, having to get younger because they got a little bit older. They were strapped with the salary cap, had to let some guys go. And it'll be interesting to be in Pittsburgh as a Packer fan because there's not a lot of movement in free agency with Pittsburgh because they can't because of money. And that's why I was scratching my head. Why would Starks come and sign with Pittsburgh? Because it's not for another starting opportunity. I would not have been upset with James Starks had he went to a team to be given a shot to start. I believe that he can be a contributor as a starter, but he's not going to be in Green Bay at this point now that we have Eddie Lacy. But I think, like you said, James Starks is comfortable with his role. They gave him a little bit of money. He gets his touches. I think it's a very good 1-2 punch. And it was evident even in the season last year. Lacey would take a breather, Starks was in, and now you got another pounding running back to go right down the defense. And, the offensive line, in my mind this year, Evan, can only get better, and I think it will. I mean, we had some key injuries early, going into the season. We had to patchwork that offensive line in training camp. And so, knock on wood, and I'll do that on my desk, I think that offensive line will be upgraded and be a lot better this year. And I think that only bodes well for Aaron Rodgers in the running game. But I'm happy to have James Starks back.
Yeah.
I think he's a good contributor on our...
And the other...
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, the other thing what James Starks is doing, he's just 26 years old. It's a 2-year contract, so when he becomes a free agent again at 28 years old, he's essentially going to have a lot. He's not going to have a ton of tread on the tires, and he's still going to be at 28. He could still contribute in the league, and you're going to have a team like the Vikings, who have Peterson getting older, might be looking to replace a running back. The 49ers, depending on how Lattimore, who they drafted in South Carolina this past draft, depending on how he heals, they're going to get a new running back in a year or two. So if he comes in and he can be healthy for the next 2 seasons, he can earn some big payday in a couple years on the open market.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. I mean, you look at what James Starks has done. He's never carried the load full time. Even with the run of the Super Bowl, it came in the Super Bowl, then the next season he didn't carry the load the whole year. So you're absolutely right. The tread on the tires is not wearing down.
Because of injury.
Yeah, because of injury, but he didn't have any major injuries like the knee surgeries and things that are going to slow that running back down. Because I'll tell you what, he was running as well as anybody last year, but of course Lacey was running better. I had no complaints with our running game last season. If I had any complaints, of course, it was with the offensive line, but I liked how James Starks was running the ball. I think that is a good signing for the Packers. As we move forward, it just solidifies our offense. But now let's talk about the one key that we lost. We lost James Jones. So let's talk a little bit about James Jones going out to Oakland. How do you feel there?
Well, I think the Packers are pretty much guaranteed to draft a wide receiver probably in the 3rd round in the draft. It sucks losing Jones. They're putting a lot on Boykin, who kind of came out of nowhere last year and he ended up, I believe, with 40-some catches for like 600 or 700 yards. He kind of came out of nowhere, though. And you're putting a lot of trust into him, where before teams didn't really have a lot of film on him. But you're putting a lot of trust in Boykin, and you got to remember, too, that Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb are both free agents next year. They're both free agents, and it's going to be they're going to have a hard time re-signing both of them. It's going to be tough. And Jordy Nelson already gave his hometown discount already when he re-signed the contract the last time. He already gave his hometown discount. Is Jordy Nelson going to be willing to take a significant pay cut once again in order to stay with Green Bay? I don't know. And Randall Cobb is still relatively young. So who out of those two are you going to be able to pay both? And if not, who are you going to pay? And if you had James Jones on the roster locked up for another 2 or 3 years, if Cobb or Nelson left via free agency due to not being able to afford the guys, then I think Ted Thompson is going to draft a receiver in 3rd or 4th round anyway. You're giving him an additional year to develop, because most wide receivers, it typically takes 3 years before they're key contributors. I believe it was Jordy Nelson's 3rd year in that Super Bowl year when he had a breakout game that game. And you just see it all the time, and I think they're playing with fire right now with the depth at the wide receiver position, and they're going to be relying on Cobb and Nelson, who Cobb has been hurt the last 2 years at times. Last year with the broken leg, and 2 years ago, I believe it was, Jordy Nelson was being slowed by a knee and I think an ankle injury. And behind him, you're going to have Boykin, and you're going to have a rookie, pretty much. So do you really trust a young, unproven Boykin and a rookie? So I think they're really playing with fire right now. You know, we had, I think when we had Tyler Dunn on, it might have been Rob. You know, one of those guys goes down, a position of strength, all of a sudden becomes a weakness.
I agree. So with that said, do you think the Packers go out and pick up I know you said draft, but I know they were talking to Hester, but I don't think he comes in and helps us at receiver. Do you think the Packers go out and look at...
No, he's not.
Do you think the Packers go out and take a look at one of these second-tier receivers? I mean, Nix is still out there. Do you think they might even go out after Nix?
No, I don't think so. You know, as we all know, Ted Thompson likes to do, he likes to plan for the future. So he's going to go into camp next year with a rookie, maybe a low-tier free agent, probably two rookies, and a low-tier free agent going to training camp with, you know, with those guys along with Boykin and Cobb and Nelson, and hope his coaches do what they do best, you know, the draft and develop model, and that's what he's gonna bank on. And I certainly hope it doesn't end up biting him in the butt.
Yeah, well, with the depth at receiver this draft, you know, I think that was Ted Thompson looking at it saying, look, I'm not going to break the bank on James Jones. James Jones went out to Oakland, got an offer. Ted Thompson's like, hey, good for you. Go out there, be the man. And the other thing, too, with Jones, you know, he's not going to be the number one guy out in Green Bay. So when he was out there looking to be able to go out there, it's, you know, for him, I guess it's a good opportunity. I'm not so sure that Oakland was the best choice for James Jones, however. You know, when I look at it, who's going to be throwing him the ball? Terrell Pryor? I mean, I'm not so sure if...
he'll be one off.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if that's the best choice for James Jones as a receiver, but, you know, who are we to say? You know, I was just surprised that that's where he went, you know, as far as places to play. But it didn't look like he was getting a lot of love out in the market from other teams, did it?
No, you know, and you know, I don't even think the Packers even gave Jones any kind of offer whatsoever. Because you look at the contract that he got. If the Packers really wanted James Jones back, that's only $1 million more than what they were already paying him the last time he signed a 3-year contract. So I honestly don't think they even wanted Jones back to begin with. I think they wanted to go that younger route. And like I said, I hope it doesn't end up biting them in the butt. And just, you know, Packer calendar watch, yours and I, our favorite Packer lineman and of all time, Marshall Newhouse is visiting the Bengals as a visit with them coming up. So,
all right.
So that's going to be very sad. And I know you and I are both going to cry if he leaves for Cincinnati.
Oh, my God. I don't know if I'll be able to do the show if he signs somewhere, buddy. I don't know if I'll be able to do the show that day.
But
you might have to have a guest co-host.
Yeah, the show.
Because I'll be so heartbroken.
The show's going to have to turn into the show's going to have to turn into a Marcia Newhouse "We Miss You" episode. Oh
yeah, that'll last all but 1 second. so that's good for him. You know, I personally, like I said, you know, I don't know how he's. I knew I was on the roster. We had injuries. You know, but he's not a guy that fits in the Packers scheme at all. I wish him the best of luck. You know, from what I've heard, what I've seen, he seems like a decent guy. He just can't play football. You know, he was terrible on the offensive line. But maybe a new place, a new start, maybe that's what he needs. You know, best of luck to him. I hope that Cincinnati, goes out, takes a chance on him. I know the Packers are not bringing him back. I would, if they did, then you would probably have to do the show alone for real, because I would be too irate if I saw Marshall Newhouse re-signs with Green Bay. I wouldn't be able to do the show then. But as we look at that,
put a lot of pressure on me.
Yeah, that'll put a lot of pressure on you. You have to fill 30 minutes with Marshall Newhouse talking how he's going to help the Packers next year. Good luck with that one. Let's talk about one key player that hasn't been re-signed yet or hasn't signed, and that's, to me, John Kuhn. I think John Kuhn is a very valuable piece in our running game. What do you think about that?
I wouldn't say it's a very valuable piece to the running game, but I will say it's a very valuable piece in pass protection. He's, and we all remember that block that he had against Julius Peppers, new Packer, in the game that got the Packers the division title. It was not for his block on Peppers, Rodgers is sacked. And the Packers lose, and the Bears go to the playoffs, and Packer fans were all sad because the Bears are in the playoffs, and, it's a different story. So people forget about that he threw that key block. And I think the Packers are just kind of being patient with John Kuhn. John Kuhn's testing his market out there right now, see what's out there for him, see if there's any interest in him. And I think ultimately he comes back to Green Bay basically for the fact that I think the Packer organization values John Kuhn more than any team in the NFL would. Because John Kuhn, I get annoyed when they decide to give him the ball on 3rd and short, especially when there's Eddie Lacy now in the backfield, because everybody knows it's coming. The crowd is chanting Kuhn. Everyone knows it's coming. But yet we're still going to give him the football for a gain of no gain or a half a yard gain, and we're short of the first down. That's what's going to happen if they, when they give Kuhn the ball in short yardage situations. And because he's not a shifty runner anymore at all. He's not a shifty runner, period. He's a fullback that can do okay every now and then in short yardage situations, and he's really good at pass pro, and that's really all he is. So if the Packers lost him, it would be they would miss him more on protecting Aaron Rodgers, which becomes especially more important. That the Packers are going to have to break in a new center because, as we all know, Evan Diedrich Smith left as a free agent. So they're that position, the guy that can step up and make key blocks, that becomes that much more important with probably a young center in there.
Well, and that was my point as a key to the running game, Evan. It wasn't so much him carrying the ball. It was his blocking. Being able to block for Eddie Lacy in a two-back set. I could care less if John Kuhn gets one carry all year. He doesn't need to carry the ball anymore with Eddie Lacy. We've got a short down back. It's Eddie Lacy. We've got a first down back. It's Eddie Lacy. We've got a second down back. It's Eddie Lacy. John Kuhn is a blocker. And I'm okay paying John Kuhn to block. I am okay with that. He doesn't have to catch a pass. He doesn't have to run the ball one time. Just block. And he likes blocking. And he plays special teams. So I think he's an important piece. And it would be, to me, a big loss if we lose him. Because he knows the system. He knows how to protect Aaron Rodgers, like you said. He can be the lead blocker when we put him and Eddie Lacy in short yardage. I'm okay with that because Eddie Lacy will get us 1 yard. And like I said, I think the offensive line will be better. We do have to fill center, but like you said, I think we were preparing for that. I think we have a guy that's going to step up, and hopefully he rises to the occasion. I still think we need to get some competition for him, whether it's through the draft or one of these tier 2 free agents that's out there, because I totally agreed, and I keep going back to it, but I just loved the interview we had with Brady Papinga. Everything he said was so true. Competition is what the Packers lacked, and we need to have it at every position. The only position, honestly, we probably are not going to have it at, well, running back with Eddie Lacy, but he still needs backup. He needs to know that if he doesn't do the job, James Starks is going to go in there. maybe Aaron Rodgers, but, we need to have a viable backup. It's not like somebody's going to come in and take Rodgers' job, but we need to have some competition for a backup quarterback. We need a very solid backup quarterback. It was evident last year in case Rodgers gets hurt. So I think every position needs to have some kind of competition. So, like I said, I hope John Kuhn can come back. I hope they're just taking their time, letting them see the market. But I think Ted Thompson knows that he's a very key blocker, like you said. So, just under 5 minutes to go, Bud. What else you want to talk about with the Packers? It is Packer Tuesday.
Yeah. And, I guess, we can talk, where, looking at what the Packers have done in free agency with signing Peppers and, Goyen. I'm sure we're going to learn how to say his last name soon enough. But with signing them, I think they changed the, because going into the draft, I'm fairly certain the defensive line was probably their top option, top pick. That's where they were going to go, first round would be defensive line again. But I think with the signing that they've made, I think it's now going to be either middle linebacker. If C.J. Mosley from Alabama falls that far, I think he's the guy. I think it might be a safety if Clinton Dix or Calvin Pryor somehow make it that far down. I think one of them is the pick, and I would not be surprised at all if Ted Thompson trades out of the first round completely and accumulates some more picks now that the desperation of having to make a splash with that first round pick with the signing of Peppers and bringing Shields back and getting a healthy Casey Hayward back, that's not as, I guess, important as it was, a week ago today. So where do you think they end up going in the draft? Do you think they end up trading out, or do you think they probably take like a safety or linebacker?
Well, do you remember our interview we had? And you remember the question I had asked? Do you think that the Packers could trade out? And that was when Ty Dunn was on the show. And, he said he didn't think that that's something that would happen, but at that point we did not have Peppers. And so I've been thinking this ever since the draft talk started. If we can't get one of those key players that's going to come in and start on day one, I could see Ted Thompson trading out of that pick. Trading down and then taking that wide receiver you're talking about. I'm not going to go out and say that's my bold prediction. It's just a thought. Because if you think about it now, we've got Peppers. We have, I'll say it this way. We have A.J. Hawk and Brad Jones, right? Can we upgrade at middle linebacker? Sure, we can upgrade. But we also have a lot of money tied into those two. And so it's not like we're going to say, well, good riddance A.J. Hawk and good riddance Brad Jones. Now that we have a semblance of a defensive line that can maybe hold up the offensive line and may open up those middle linebackers to make some plays, as I had said earlier. And I know you're still big on getting the basher. Getting the basher. I know you talk about it all the time. But now that we have a semblance of a defensive line, if Ted Thompson cannot get, and I'll call him a stud, because that's the guy that's going to come in and start on day one, I could truly see him trading down with the plethora of wide receivers available and snatch one up at the top of the second round. Because I can see some of those teams that are at the top of the draft wanting to jump in and be in that 21st position. And I would be okay with that, to give it up for maybe a second and a fourth, to move back. I might be okay with that. That's my thought on that. So, no, I really think that he could. And I think if there's not an impact player at 21, he will think about it long and hard. He's done it before. And so I could honestly see him possibly doing that, Bud. But with that said, another great
10
show.
seconds.
Any last words on today's show for the listeners?
Not for today's show, but make sure to listen tomorrow as our good buddy, great guest Kevin Cunningham's coming on talking Marquette basketball and their trip to the Division III Final Four coming up this weekend. So give us a listen.
Yeah, UW Whitewater Warhawks. Gotta love it, both men and women in the Final Four. That's awesome for me, Evan. You know that. That's where I went to school, so I'm all pumped up about Whitewater basketball in the Final Four. Kevin Cunningham's always a great guest. And like I said, we are still trying to get the commissioner of National Pro Fast Pitch on the show, Sherry Kempf. Can't wait for her to join us, talk about that, because like we said, we are going to cover the PA Rebellion, who is one of the 4 teams in that league. They are just a hop, skip, and a jump away from me where they play at Consol Energy Park. And so we will try to get her on the show as soon as we can. But like you said, tomorrow is Kevin Cunningham. It'll be a great show previewing Division III Final Four. We'll get back at you tomorrow. We'll see you all at the next red light. Have a great evening, everyone.